probably best associated with Paradigm Collapse. I was briefly in Portrait of a Drowned Man, some other projects when I was younger, but not much lately. There's one called Kill You, kind of like a grunge band.
Kill You?
Killy.
Oh, okay.
Like it was just a little killy. It wasn't fully killy. And Operation Gertie.
Oh.
I think Gertie was the name of the girl on E.T. I don't remember. Paradigm kind of started out just like a free-for-all. When we would play shows, we didn't discuss anything beforehand. We just go out and play. It was kind of an explorative spirit about it. You know, it was more or less just going out and letting a group of people watch us take a journey. Then it kind of evolved over time to where we'd work out passages where we had, you know, something grounding we could come back to, and then be able to go out and explore, and then, you know, come back to something that was pre-calculated. You know, playing with Jon, he's probably one of the most inspired guitar players I've ever, you know, been around. He just oozes creativity. So I would love the opportunity to do that again. You know, if Jon gets to a place where he's able to apply himself again, it's definitely something I would like to pursue. I grew up in a town called Carlton, Minnesota, a population of like 800 people. It's near Jay Cook State Park. Kind of where I spent most of my childhood was inside of the park. Our property was right on the border of it, so like when I was younger, I'd pack up my Ninja Turtle backpack with sandwiches and head out into the wilderness. Zero music. We were the music scene. There was a band a few years before us. A good friend of mine was in it. It was a kind of a huge inspiration to me when, you know, I was coming up. You know, he was a drummer that was older than, you know, me and my friends, and, you know, we all looked up to him. They were like the only other band I can really think of that came out of there. Nocturnal Emission. Omission. Yeah, Omission, not Emission.
Something like a metal band.
It was, I'd say they were pretty grungy too. It was kind of like, yeah, I'd say pretty grungy. You know, in a pretty limited capacity. I was never much of a go-getter in the scene. I wasn't really good at networking, didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to go out of my way. Pretty much every gig we'd ever done, we had been asked by other bands. We never actually we never set up a gig. We always were asked by other bands, or, you know, somebody post something.
Like cool bands like BTS and Unheard.
Yeah, we used to play tons of shows with Bury the Sun. I think, you know, there was a period in time there where it seemed like every week we were playing a show. We were really, you know, Jon and I were both in college, and, you know, with the way the economy was, we decided we should probably look for jobs that were going to be a little less fickle than construction work. So we kind of both went back to school, and that period in our lives, I don't think either one of us ever got like that typical, you know, like college days type of thing. So we did our typical college days type of thing when we were like 25. You know, and we played out a lot. Say every other week at least. It seemed like we were doing a show. But yeah, as far as actually like being a part of the scene, I know faces, but I've never really like or put myself out there to like really introduce myself to too many people. I wish we could say that we were making some kind of, like grand statement with what we were doing, trying to like, subvert, kind of what had been built in the area, trying to change things. But in reality, we were just trying to do our own thing. We didn't, I wish we could say that we purposely set out to make music that, most people were going to not understand or not be able to sit and listen to. But we were, just having fun doing our own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we did set out to be assholes on a couple of, occasions. We did one show where we spent a whole bunch of time doing a mic check, and we're an instrumental group. So, and we had one where we had a buddy from another band wheel in a mannequin that we had in our practice space. With like, her head was like caved in and full of like funeral flowers, and she was wearing a shirt that said "Who farted?" Like, we had him wheel that in about 5 minutes into our set, and there were a whole bunch of, like former hockey player bros at the bar that all just, as one group, just got up and just exited the building. So we did do some stuff to kind of be obnoxious assholes, but we, for the most part, we were loving what we were doing. We were, exploring new space and, enjoying it. The best thing about, getting out and playing shows was, it was kind of like a sense of community to a certain degree. And, I may have like begrudgingly, put myself into that kind of community. It was still good to be able to go out, every week and see, kind of the same faces, the same people. As far as things that weren't great about being out and playing music is, like, as a musician, you work very hard to accumulate gear that you care an awful lot about. Mm-hmm. And then you take it out and you put it in a room with a bunch of, liquor-filled idiots who are either going to fight on top of your gear or barf on your gear or try and walk off with your gear. That was kind of one of the things that was kind of a deciding factor for when we started kind of, dialing things back a little bit with playing out was, I don't want to bring, something I've sold, great hours of my life to some company in order to purchase these things and have some, bobblehead throw up into my bass drum or something. Yeah. And we have, we would, kind of do things to a degree, weed out the people who should not have been there, like the thing we did with the mannequin. There was a time where, like, I wore a three-piece suit and a top hat, and John wore, like, this ridiculous get-up. He looked like, like a university professor from, like, the 70s, like a big-time pothead university professor, like the kind of guy that slept with his students, and, he had big aviator glasses and, a corduroy jacket with suede patches on the elbows. And we got done playing that show, and a woman came up to us and, told us how much she enjoyed listening to us, that she saw us setting up and we looked like idiots, and she was expecting, I don't know what she was expecting, but she's like, I really enjoyed, your guys' music. I just don't know why, you guys chose to dress that way. And I just kind of responded with like, well, if you came to see something, you're not the person that we want here. I grew up in a house with a dad who was a musician. He was a bass player and very much of like the 70s rock era. So I grew up on, Zeppelin and Floyd and Jimi Hendrix and Cream and, you know, bands like that. And that's kind of where I learned what music was. And kind of when I decided, you know, who I wanted to be. I mean, I essentially play John Bonham's drum set. My son's middle name is Bonham. So I'm really jealous of people who, you know, were around, could go out and buy Led Zeppelin's first release and put it on and hear Good Times and Bad Times for like the first time. So I don't think I ever really got to hear that for the first time because I probably heard it in utero. You know what I mean? You know, been hearing it all my life, but you know, Led Zeppelin is probably like the biggest impact musically on me. But I think things kind of changed when I found like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. Like that kind of opened my eyes to like this darker side of music. And you know, through the years listening to different stuff, getting into, you know, post-rock and post-metal bands like, you know, Russian Circles and Isis, and every time I hear, you know, a new band that becomes one of my, like, oh, I gotta have all of this music. You know, I get absolutely blown away. So I can't like pinpoint one point in time where I was just like completely floored. I guess probably the first time I heard Intronaut.
Oh yeah.
You know, that was left field.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're...
What album was that?
I got into them around Habitual Levitations, and that's still my favorite work of theirs.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I heard Danny Walker playing on, what was it, Killing Birds with Stones?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? And then, like, they're obviously just, like, huge stoners, but they somehow maintain, like, this level of expertise and familiarity with their instruments that they're just, you know, absolutely mind-blowing musicians.
Yeah.
I was banging on pots and pans as a little kid, and my dad had, you know, guitars and basses throughout the house, so I kind of, you know, would go steal those on occasion or make a drum set out of pots and, you know, wooden spoons and stuff. But I got my first drum set when I was 12.
Okay.
It was a chestnut stain Yamaha Stage Custom. Like a jackass, I sold it at one point in my life. Regrettable. But yeah, 12 years, so 23 years of playing drum set.
No.
And one of these days I'll be good at it. Well, back in the day when we were playing, you know, regularly with Bury the Sun, that was a huge part of my life. Like, we kind of, you know, John and I were never gonna like take that step to like get out and play, and I think my godfather was good friends with somebody who had a gig at the Red Mug for Experimental like Tuesday or something like, and they had to cancel this gig there, and he's just like, you guys are playing that gig, like it's yours now. And we just were like, oh, alright, but we don't have like songs or anything.
Yeah.
You know? And that's when we kind of just decided, like, you know, like what we do for fun, let's just go do that. Like, it sounds good, we like it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that show with or not with anybody, it was just us. And they had all kinds of like pottery and stuff on the walls. I think it's usually like acoustic people who are playing that. And I was like seriously afraid that stuff was going to fall off the walls because we were playing, when we play out, we always play like as loud as we could. and I was literally concerned that stuff was gonna, that pottery was gonna come off the walls.
Yeah.
But then, we had no intent of booking gigs or trying to get gigs. So then, I think the next one, Dustin, from at the time, Portraits for Judith, and I think that was Pennies for a Dime's first show we played with. People just started reaching out, and we ended up playing a lot of shows with metal bands, and we weren't metal.
Yeah.
We were psychedelic, post-rock, instrumental, kind of pretty chill, compared to most metal music. So
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, the metal guys tend to really dig what we were about, and we'd get another show with some metal dude that was in the audience that night to come out and see his friend's band or whatever. So it was never really about getting recognition from anybody, or even it was never even really about turning people onto us. It was just about going out and doing what we wanted. But it definitely was awesome to hear people accept it and really appreciate and dig what we were doing. I never got sick of people coming up and telling me that they were impressed with what we were doing, that they loved what we were doing, or that was great. It wasn't what I set out to get, but I sure as hell loved it. I love music. It has been, as long as I can remember, an integral part of my life. That being said, I think I love it to the point where I would be uncomfortable making a living off of it, because in order to make a living off of it, I would have to compromise somewhere, and I'm not willing to do that. I don't want that to be ruined, if that makes any sense. The music is, as dumb and cliche as it sounds, especially to have these words come out of an atheist's mouth, the music is sacred to a certain degree.
Yeah.
That I would feel guilty if I were to ever receive money in exchange for it. I've never taken money when we've played a gig, with the exception of homegrown gigs, and that's because I've never really been particularly fond of homegrown. And they'd say consider donating, your pay back to homegrown. I was like, if I ever did get money for doing a show, I always gave it to the wait staff, or the bartender, or the guy doing sound, or something like that. But homegrown, I took that cash. So yeah. I just don't, job I have now, I don't love the work I do. I do it because it's a job. If music ever became a job, I'd be too afraid that it would be ruined by that in order to pursue it in the capacity where it would actually become kind of a career or anything.
Yeah.
So, no, the radio's not cut out for what I do.
Yeah.
I like hearing things that haven't been done before. I do not get goosebumps from 3-chord rock with, snare hits on 2 and 4.
Yeah.
I've heard it a million times. We've all heard it a million times. It's boring. That's really all, it can be used in a, passage for effect or something, a little simplicity, against something that's really unconventional, or, something that's conventional in amongst a whole bunch of, bizarre music. There's something to be said for that, but for the most part, I'm looking to either listen to music that's going to give me goosebumps or play music that's going to give me goosebumps. And, it's got to be something that, has something unique about it. every genre is gonna have, you know, people who are beating the horse to death.
Yeah.
You know, there's like all that bro metal that's out there. I couldn't, you know, even if I studied like over the weekend, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between Killswitch Engage and Five Finger Death Punch. Even if I studied, man, it sounds exactly the fucking same to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to swear in this or not.
That's not good. Yeah.
It's college students, right?